Welcome all to the first video entry of allegedly true paranormal encounters. In tonight's video, you will be listening to 10 stories revolving around different types of entities. Hopefully, the events to be told will give you an idea on what to expect from Lights Out. We'll also be covering encounters that involve human creeps, more specific creatures, such as skinwalkers, and possibly even viewer-selected topics in upcoming videos. Feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts, perhaps even a vote towards other topics you would be interested in, and maybe even hit that big red button at the bottom right, as well as the bell icon to be notified of future videos. With that being said, let us delve deeper into the unknown. What I'm about to write is my experience with something extremely paranormal. It left me kinda fucked up, because I never had an experience as intense. So, when I was younger, my family and I lived in this trailer surrounded by forest. We only had one neighbor, and we were all pretty close. Our neighbors had someone who worked for them. He would even come by our place and fix up anything we had a problem with. He was in love with the neighbor's wife, and we only found out about the affair after he passed. Anyway, she basically told him she couldn't continue seeing him, and it left him extremely heartbroken. My mom told me the day he committed suicide, he waved to the neighbor's daughter and jumped off the tree and hung himself right behind their house. My mom said she ran inside to call an ambulance, but it was too late. He passed. Fast forward a week or two. My parents would work at night, and my sister and I would always be alone. We heard stomping on our porch, and someone was swinging our glass door open and would slam it shut over and over again. We would try and laugh it off, say it was the wind, but clearly, that wasn't a possibility. One night, I woke up, and I swear to God there was someone in my closet. I couldn't make out a face. It was just a figure staring at me, and I was frozen in fear. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't move at all. The next day, I cried to my sister and told her what happened, and she told me some weird shit was happening to her as well. So we decided to start sleeping in the same room. The stomping on the porch would get more intense, and the slamming of the door got so bad we would hold each other tight and pray. We started hearing our dishes being slammed around, and our cabinets would open and close. We would hear footsteps on the other side of the trailer, and more slamming. The next morning, everything would be moved around. It never really stopped. We moved out a year later, and nothing really happened to us ever again. It was that house, and I'm 100% certain it was the ex-lover. I've never experienced something so intense. This happened to me and a friend about 10 years ago, at the end of our sophomore year of high school. We were up in the rafters of the school auditorium, messing around with his video camera, because the auditorium was supposedly haunted, but neither of us really believed it. So, we were up there pretty late after school one day, when, as luck would have it, the lights go off. I assumed it was some seniors trying to scare us, but my friend told me not to move a muscle. At the time, I thought it was just because there are 6-inch gaps in the rafters every 2 feet, and we were probably at least 100 feet above the stage, and he didn't want me to fall and injure myself. But then it started to get cold. Like, really cold. Give you goosebumps in the middle of summer cold. I stood there for what felt like a few minutes, and eventually, the lights came back on, and the theater teacher found us and started scolding us for messing around up in the rafters with the lights off. We let her chew us out without protest, but when we left, I kept trying to make jokes with my friend, and he just wasn't responding. It wasn't like him to let a teacher ripping us a new one get to him, so I asked if he was okay, and he told me there was something I needed to see. He showed me the footage he captured on his camera after the lights went out, and after he switched his camera to night vision, I could clearly see myself standing right next to another kid about my height and weight, who had his hands around my throat. There wasn't anyone else up in the rafters with us at the time. I was so freaked out that I refused to set foot in the auditorium for the rest of my time at that school, and I still won't go back. My friend moved out of state a few months after this happened, and I've always wanted to get a hold of him for a copy of that footage. But at the same time, I could rest easily, never seeing that particular image again. A few years ago, I worked in a hotel. I was working in the breakfast buffet. I usually started 2 hours before breakfast, and as a routine, I always took the phone with me in case someone called for room service. It was rare, but they told me I had to answer the calls even super early. One day, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang. It was rare in that time of the morning, but anyway. It was one of those line phones where you can see who is calling. For example, you can see a room number or maybe reception, but I saw lobby rooftop. That was odd. The rooftop of the hotel was closed to people at that time of day, but I thought maybe it was a coworker who was cleaning and needed something. I answered, and nothing. Hello? I said again. Hello? Nothing. After a few seconds, I hung up and forgot about it. Later that day, another coworker came, and I told her about the call. She casually said to me, "Oh, yeah, it's the girl who died here." "What?" I said. "Yes, a few years ago, a girl jumped from the rooftop of the hotel and died. But before that, she took the phone from the lobby there and called to the buffet. But she didn't say anything. She called around 6 o'clock. To clarify, the phone of that lobby was in the bar counter, so it was easy to use. She told me more about her. It was a teen girl who was living in a mental institution in the city. Her parents lived quite far away, but visited her every weekend. They booked this hotel every weekend with her, so she can leave the mental institution for a couple of days every week. One night, she managed to get to the rooftop, and you know the rest. They never knew why she did it. Since then, the rooftop is closed to everyone until the evenings when the lobby opens, but reception told me that no way it was open that time of the day. I checked who was working at that time, and there were just 3 people: the cook, the receptionist, and me. I sometimes think about her, and even though I was a little bit scared in the moment, I'm glad I picked up the phone. Maybe she will get angry if no one answers. My entire life, my family has always experienced paranormal. At the time, we had just moved to an apartment complex. My sister, 5 years, and me, 3 years, slept in the bedroom while my parents, Mom, 23 years, and Dad, 22 years, slept in the living room/dining room. For Christmas, I got a doll. It was about the size of my arm. It needed batteries to work. I never liked it and never used it. It creeped me out, with the short brown hair and creepy big eyes, so we never bothered to put batteries. One night, while we were all sleeping, my dad woke up due to hearing noises coming from our room. It sounded like slamming on our closet. He checked and saw nothing, so he went back to sleep. An hour later, he wakes up and sees the doll walking, coming from our room and walking past him. The doll sees him and looks at him while moving her head side to side. He jumps, waking up my mom, and gets the doll and puts it in a bag and takes it to the trash. The next morning, he tells the whole family, and since then I hated dolls. And that wasn't even the first doll experience I've had. When I was a little kid, I woke up in the middle of the night because I felt someone watching me. A kid my age with a red striped shirt, blue jeans, and distinct curly hair was peeking into my room. I tried to scream, but I was frozen in shock and couldn't move. The kid disappeared, so I fell back asleep thinking nothing of it. I was 6 and very sleepy. Can you blame me? The next day, I told my mom that this kid was in our house, and I described him to her. She went pale and looked pretty freaked out, but I didn't really see what the big deal was. Turns out, her brother died of leukemia at age 6. A red striped shirt was his favorite outfit, and he had those same distinct curls. That was the first time she ever told me about him. It was a very traumatic experience for her, and I don't think she ever got over it. When I talk to her about him now, she always brings up the time that I saw him and says he's always looking out for me. When I was 6, I had awful sleeping problems and would stop breathing multiple times every night. Maybe that's why he checked up on me. It's probably the only good experience I've had with a ghost, and I hope he's still looking out for me. I had an odd experience a while back, 3 to 4 years ago, and had no logical explanation for it. I have always believed in the paranormal, but I would like some outsider input from someone who is possibly more educated in this topic. I have no photographic evidence. The shortest rundown I can give, while giving as much detail as possible, is that me, my brother, his friend, and my uncle were playing hide and seek. It was my turn, so I checked between the couch and felt what would be an arm. It was warm, almost an organic warm. It felt like it had no hair, so I rolled out it being one of my dogs. I still had a hold on it and turned on the lights. When I looked at what I was holding, nothing was in my hands. No arm. Nothing. I asked my brother if any of them were there. He declined, probably trying to scare me even more. And I asked him again recently. He still declined. To this day, I don't know if what I felt was a ghost or something else. If anyone can give me insight, it would be greatly appreciated. Sorry if it sounds unbelievable, but I would really like some insight as of what it could have been. I was about 10 when this happened, so maybe I imagined it, but it felt extremely real. Like if you grabbed a person's arm on a summer day and you can feel the heat almost resonating. This just happened to me like 10 minutes ago. So, I usually take walks in the woods, most of the time with my buck knife and machete. Earlier today, I took a walk in the woods behind my house. As usual, I took my knife and machete and set off. I'm not a person who believes in ghosts or cryptids. Nonetheless, people might say I encountered a cryptid. So, here goes. I'm walking in the woods, knife on my right and machete on left. I clear a small patch with my knife and realize my machete is too dull to use. I'm walking until I come to a point where all the paths join. I see some leaves rustling, and I just assume it's a coyote or a deer. Then, I kneel to rest in the middle of the point. I hear a noise that will haunt me forever. Someone's humming in the distance, but it echoed as if they had a loudspeaker next to them. I was creeped out, and then I hear a I unbuckle my knife sheath and hear a "You," followed by fast footsteps. I take my knife in my hand and run, holding it in a position ready to spin around and slash whatever is behind me. I come to a downed tree blocking the path. I'm going to have to fight, I thought. I see a tiny path where I can crawl through the tree branches. The footsteps are getting faster, louder. I say, "Fuck it," and dive through the branches, cutting myself all over from branches. My knife is in my sheath. I hear whatever it is, snarling and what sounds like choking. I realize that a path is right next to the downed tree. I hear it rustling through the briars. This isn't over. I run as fast as a person in mud boots can and see my house. I get in, grab my gun, and wait for a little while. After I realized whatever that thing was is not following, I started writing this post. So, let's get the characters for the story underway. Me. Who else? John, an old friend of mine I had at the time, and creepy stalker, guy or thing that followed us, then vanished. So, This takes place around the time I was in elementary school, / going to middle school. To this day, I still don't know who or what I saw. So it was 12 a.m. midnight. I was staying the night at John's house on a weekend. For some reason, still don't know why to this day, me and John decided we didn't want to stay the night at his house, but at my house. To give you a visual, John's house is in the middle of 2 hills, and is on the only flat surface that's between the hills. When you leave his house, you have to choose to go up the left hill or the right hill. When you go up the left hill, you either have to go straight right or left. And to get to my house, you go left. So, we get up the hill. Mind you, this is around 12 a.m. midnight. No one was out that we could see. No cars, no one walking, nothing. So we take that left to go to my house, and suddenly, we got the feeling we were being followed. So we both turned our heads behind us, and suddenly, there's this person in all black, with his hands in his pocket, and his head tilted slightly to the ground. At least enough for us to be able to see his face, right? Wrong. There was no face. It was just pitch black. John and I began to get scared and worried, obviously. So we started to speed up, and so did Creepy Stalker. He kept a pace behind us. We had tried not to pay attention to him, but it didn't work. We started to hear footsteps picking up behind us, then running. We turn our heads again, and bam. Creepy Stalker is running at us. Naturally, we bolt for my house, head up the stairs outside, get in, and shut the door behind us, and we look outside. Nothing. He was gone as quickly as he appeared, like a ghost or demon or something. I'd like to believe we were either seeing things or just really tired, but I know what I saw. Me and John never hung out or spoke to each other again. The reason why I'm certain we saw something is because sometimes I feel like I'm being watched when I try to go to sleep, but I know no one else is in my house but me and my grandma. So, creepy ghost, demon, or whatever you were, let's not meet, ever. Okay, so, I have always said I have seen them since I was 5 or 6. This will be my first time having seen them, and since then, they never stopped. So, I used to live in a private house. It was a 3-family home, but it was shared with other families. I remember the home layout perfectly well. When you walk in through the door, you have the bathroom in front of you and the kitchen to your right. To your left is a large living room and the bedroom after that. The bedroom was small, but it was enough for a small family. It was me, my dad, and my mom. We weren't far from stores. Like 5 from stores and 2 supermarkets. Father was at work doing security or EMS. I don't remember too much what he did, so it was me and my mother. She wanted to go to the market that day, and I was in the bedroom watching TV. We had a high-riser, bed that goes under the other and pulls out when you are ready to sleep, leveling with the other bed. I was sitting on the bottom one when my mother comes into the room, asking if I wanted to go with her or stay home. I'm not sure if at the time, leaving your child alone in the house was against the law, but yeah, it was in the 80s. Of course, I chose to stay home because me, a kid, and TV. So the usual mother-child rules of leaving their child alone in the house. No opening the door. Do not leave the room and just stay watching TV. Me and your father have the key. Mother leaves the house, and I faithfully stay to the TV after watching her get out of view to the end of the block, which again, wasn't far at all. Now, I turn and watch TV. Suddenly, the TV starts to become messed up, and I start messing with the bunny ears to realize it's not working. I change the channel, and it's all white noise. I hear something. My name. I'm thinking Mother is back, and I walk to the bedroom door. I look ahead, and no one is there. Mother had not come back, so there should be no one in the house. I stay quiet, though, in case someone was at the door. Again, I'm in the bedroom, and you can see straight to the kitchen. I go back and stare at the TV that was no longer showing a picture, but just static. It seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. But I was a kid, so I wasn't sure how TV worked. Again, I heard my name. I turned my head and looked to the bedroom door, staring at it. Hearing my name, I was rather shocked. It wasn't my mother's. My dad wasn't home. Again, I heard my name. And there were steps. But it wasn't what footsteps should sound like. It wasn't a pit-pat of flat feet. It was the sound of hooves, like a horse, but slowly, with caution as if aware. It was one step after my name was said. It wasn't a firm voice. It was more of a whispering call, as if luring someone. I stand up and walk again, slowly this time, towards the bedroom door and look out. Looking straight ahead was the living room, the bathroom, and the kitchen. You see half the fridge as it was there, casting a shadow from the light that came in from the window. The hoof noises happened again, and slowly, the shadow of the fridge moves. I was thinking someone is in the driveway moving around, until I saw the shadow form. There was no longer a shadow behind the fridge. It was next to the fridge. There was a shadow image, kinda skinny. The upper body slightly arched forward. The head shaped like a triangle, with a sharp-like chin, and two long, pointy things coming from the head. But it looked like a person. It was standing there, but not physically. But the bottom is where it got weird. The bottom was of two legs, but the legs weren't straight. They were arched back, like an animal's back legs. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I just stared at it. It stood still, but you can hear a horse slowly walking till it was starting to strut faster. My name was called again, as I stood in fear at the door for a split second before running into the room and hiding under the bed. I kept there, hearing the hooves getting closer as it was sounding like it was passing the bathroom and just going through the living room. My name still being whispered along the house. I started crying, not sure what was going on, and suddenly, just like that, you hear the keys to the door unlocking it. The hooves stopped, the whispering died, and the TV was back to showing whatever show was on for that channel. When the door opened, I ran so fast and hugged the hell out of my mother. I cried so hard, and my mother thought someone did something to me, but I didn't know how to explain it. So I told her I was scared, and she said, "Well, I told you I was going to the supermarket, and you wanted to stay." That's all I could say to her when I didn't understand crap. This was my first memory of what started, of my seeing and hearing of the paranormal. Years later, I had seen the depictions of how religions had seen the devil, and I saw it looked exactly like the image of the shadow that had first appeared itself to me. But by then, I had already seen so much, and admitting that you might have seen the devil at 6 years old wasn't really on my mind to tell anyone. But yes, my first paranormal experience was the shadow of the devil himself. About 3 years ago, I started waking up at 3 a.m. every night. For about a month, I would wake up and not be able to go back to sleep for 30 minutes to an hour afterwards. The last time it happened, I had sleep paralysis, and I couldn't see much. I did feel like there was something above me, breathing down my neck. I just kinda shrugged it off and went back to sleep. The next night is when it got freaky. I was still thinking about the sleep paralysis I had, and I still felt the presence I had experienced the night before. That night, at 3 a.m., I woke up again, and like usual, I just tried to go back to sleep. A few minutes later, I felt something tickle my hand. I thought it was my little brother trying to climb into my bed because he had a nightmare or something. I shooed at him and rolled over. I felt my other hand get tickled, and I waved it away and told him to quit it. Right after I said to stop, he grabbed my wrist and yanked me up. I jumped out the bed and turned on the light. There was nothing there. I didn't sleep much the rest of the night, but I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. anymore, and I no longer felt that presence. I don't think I'll ever forget that night.